right, we got a 2005 Dodge Ram with a Cummins. Having a charging issue. Check gauges light came on, battery voltage dropped all the way off, and the gauge zeroed out. Pulled the engine code, and it got a P2503 for low voltage. There's a couple of different things that could be a possible problem on these. A lot of people recommend you go right after your connections, which is definitely the first thing to check. Make sure all your connections are good and tight. And then also the crossover cable, because what happens is the passenger side battery is the one that gets charged directly from the alternator, and then that crossover cable supplies that additional current over to the other battery, and that other battery is what the computer and everything reads off of. So if you're not getting a high enough voltage on there, your PCM or your engine control module is what's going to be reading that voltage and telling the computer that, hey, there's a problem, we need to check that circuit. So what I get is I went ahead and checked both battery voltages. Both of them were about 11.2 when I started. And then after that, what I did was I took a jumper cable over from the positive terminal on the driver's side to the positive terminal on the battery side. Leave the negatives disconnected, you don't need to have those connected. And checked again to see if there was a problem starting it and seeing if that voltage was crossing over. Still no change. If your crossover cable was bad, this would have bypassed that. So that's the easy way to eliminate the crossover cable without having to buy one. But after that, what I'll do is I'll show you a couple different things too as well. The battery temp sensor, which is underneath the driver's side battery tray, on the very bottom it sits underneath your battery. What that does is it reads the temperature of this battery, and it sends that input to your PCM, which your PCM will then determine what the output voltage on your alternator needs to be. So your alternator won't charge the battery if there's a fault with your battery temperature sensor. This wasn't the problem on this one, but that is a problem that commonly occurs on these. This one actually ended up being the alternator, and what you can do is when you, well, I'll pull the other one out. Now I should have showed you on the known good one after I done it, but these two terminals right here, you can check the resistance across these terminals, and the factory service manual states it should be between 0.5 ohms and 15 ohms. This one has open lead, so there's no continuity going between the two posts. That's a pretty good indicator that the alternator is fried. Switch the alternator out, and we're back to running and charging how it should. Not everybody has a fancy tool to use, but if you do, what you can do is you can pull this up and you can look at your desired charge voltage. So this is what your computer is telling the alternator what it wants to put out. And then there's the battery temperature reading. That's what it's giving the input over to the computer in order to dictate the amount of voltage that needs to be supplied by the output of the alternator. So that's it for these ones. And it was the alternator this time, not the crossover, not the battery temp sensor or loose connection.